It's a cliche, but it really does come down to the people. I'm a failed journalist. I took math pass fail in college, so I certainly don't have the ability to do any of the jobs here. But we have a team here of people that are statisticians, mathematicians, data analysts, data engineers, data scientists. And not only are they really good at their job, so that's table stakes, that's the bar. You have to be good at what you do. But we really put a big focus on our core values. We interview on core values. We hire and fire based on core values. They're part of the annual review. So if you're great at your job, that's not 5 stars, that's 3 stars. That's not an A, that's a C. So to be like great here, to really excel, there is that big focus on culture and connection within our organization.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to look at building a great culture. It's no secret that the key to scaling your business isn't more work for you, but it's to leverage the work of others and to build a team of people that are excellent at what they do. They're aligned together, and that takes you building a great culture. My hope is that you'll find today as exciting as I love delivering this kind of content to you. Our special guest today is Bill Balderaz. He's the CEO of Futurety. And it really is an impressive company that has grown fast. It took them 7 years to get to the 1 million mark. And then they've just exploded since there because they built a strong foundation of people that are able to scale, and they're continuing to evolve. And we unpack some of that today. We look at some of the aspects of building a great culture, and specifically the importance of values, hiring the right people, and exiting people that don't align with the values if that is needed. There's many other pieces to this, I think, that will make you a better leader and create a better culture for this. But hopefully you'll find something insightful and be able to execute on that, because that's our goal today. When you think about your own company and you think about what you're doing, I would love for you to think about what we do here at Core Elevation. That's our company name. I'm an executive coach. My team does leadership development, and we're really focused on helping companies that have people problems and really helping them continue to grow and scale their business by having better leaders at all levels of the company. Now, we do this in many different ways, but if you're curious about how you can engage with us and how you could get to know us, then we're going to invite you to something that's absolutely special and free. It's called an executive virtual conversation. That is something you can sign up for. Just go to coreelevation.com/virtual conversations. We do one per month, give or take, and the topics change and the format changes from month to month. But if you're curious about how you could get your questions answered, you can join in and ask other CEOs and really engage with us in a different way than you probably are now. If you're curious about what other CEOs are doing in certain aspects, then this is the best place I know to go. Just go to coreelevation.com/virtual conversations. Now, here's the interview with Bill. Bill, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Gene?
I am fantastic. We're going to have a great conversation about creating a great culture, what that really is, how do we do it, what gets in the way. Before we dive into that, tell me about Futurety, your company.
Sure. So we are a data analytics company based in Columbus, Ohio, but serving clients all over the world. Our core value proposition is no one has too little data. Most organizations have too much data, doesn't talk to each other, it's inconsistent. In some, you're Gene with a G, some you're Gene with a J. Hammett's got 2 M's, it's got 1 T. So generally speaking, our job is come in, help you engineer that data, mine that data, draw insights, and then use that so you're communicating with your audience with exactly the message that they want to hear at the right time.
I love that. What type of industries do you work with?
We like regulated industries the best, in part because a lot of people don't want to play there. We're HIPAA compliant. We're going through SOC 2. We are primarily in the office, so we can touch very sensitive data that a lot of organizations don't want to, or that takes a pretty specialized skill. So hospitals, healthcare, pharma, but we also work with some large retail brands. We work in government, but generally it's stuff either too big or too complicated for most other organizations to want to jump into.
Well, I've definitely got a client I think I want to connect you with, and actually it's in your backyard. So
we appreciate that.
We'll see if there is a connection after we finish today's recording.
Beautiful. Great.
I know that you made the Inc. list, and it's a big honor to be on that. You're not alone. There's a team behind you. I know you've got about 23 employees, give or take. What do you think really drives the success of your company?
Sure. It's a cliche, but it really does come down to the people. I'm a failed journalist. I took math pass fail in college, so I certainly don't have the ability to do any of the jobs here. But we have a team here of people that are statisticians, mathematicians, data analysts, data engineers, data scientists. And not only are they really good at their job, so that's table stakes. That's the bar. You have to be good at what you do. But we really put a big focus on our core values. We interview on core values. We hire and fire based on core values. They're part of the annual review. So if you're great at your job, that's not 5 stars, that's 3 stars. That's not an A, that's a C. So to be like great here and to really excel, there is that big focus on culture and connection within our organization.
I like the way you frame that because I've had some leaders, clients of mine that have struggled with this whole aspect of, well, if someone's performing well, shouldn't that be enough? And, I jokingly would say, well, what if they were assholes?
Right.
And he goes, well, that's a reason to fire someone or to reprimand them or to have a tough conversation. But what you described to me is being good at your job is a C, a 3 out of 5. Right. It's a C level kind of grade, if you will.
Right.
But being in alignment with the values, being a team player, collaborating, building trust with others, those are what it really takes to excel at your position here at your company. Is that fair to say?
I think that's absolutely right. In the past, I've had to fire our top performing sales rep. This was when I had another company. He drove a huge percentage of our revenue. It was profitable revenue. The client was going to go if he went, he had that relationship, but he was just a bad person. And so the culture fit was just completely off. So, having to do that set us back. It took a while to recover from. Ultimately, it was the right thing to do, and the organization came back stronger. But certainly I've had to make that decision. And when we go out and compete in the market, you can tell the people that don't focus on culture. We've got some competitors that technically can do all the things we can do, have that skill level. But when we do our client surveys, one of the feedback we consistently get is clients like working with our team because they like us and they can tell we like each other.
Bill just talked about firing a high performer. Now, I don't know if you've ever had to do this before, but every once in a while, you'll be required to be a courageous leader and to fire someone who is actually doing a good job, because just doing a good job is not enough. He said it earlier. Doing your work is C level work performance. You've got to be a good team player. You've got to live the values. And so if you're not doing that, you've got to look at the people that are on your team, in your culture, and see if they are aligned with the values. And if they are a high performer, it may be hard, but I know from experience, you've got to fire those people. You've got to let go of people because it will cost you in the long run. I've seen this happen with my clients. I've seen it happen with the companies I run. It really is important for you to look at the values of the company and determine if there is an alignment. If someone's not willing to get in alignment, let's just say you have a collaboration as a value, you want to make sure that they're living that and that they send a signal to others across the organization. Because if they're a lone wolf, they're not willing to collaborate, then it's going to cause problems. If people are going to resent them and people are going to learn from them and say that that's what's accepted. That's how you get to this rock star level, which isn't true. So you want to make sure that that you really can have the courage to assess whether you hire or fire a top performer. I wrote an article about this many months ago, probably years ago, but why leaders should not be afraid to fire their top performer for Inc. magazine. If you want to Google that, just go ahead. It's why leaders should not be afraid to fire their top performer. And now back to Bill. Bill, we're talking about what does it take to have the right people involved, but what we're dancing around here is this whole concept of building a great culture. What are your keys to building a great culture?
Sure. One, I think you have to define your core values. One of my mentors tells me that every leader has the culture they deserve. So if you look around and you have a terrible culture and it's not what you fit, it's your fault, is the harsh way to say it. When we were, before I made our very first hire, I defined what those values are. I actually have posters around the office with an image that represents it, and then kind of a line, the one behind me blurred out, though it's actually the Godfather. It says, build a network you can trust. And so these are some of my personal mantras I've got surrounding me in my office here right now. But one, you have to know what that culture is. I think good core values and good culture, there's like saying, don't steal. That's not a good part of your culture, a good core value, because you just shouldn't. It's fundamentally wrong to steal. That you just shouldn't steal. But, one of our core values is to develop a bias towards action. which is great for us. But if you're a brain surgeon or an airline pilot, and the idea is like, act first and ask permission later, that's a terrible core value. So part of it is understanding what's unique in our DNA. We have 5 core values, and my mantra to people is we're human beings. Where there's 10,000 aspects of our personality, we can disagree on 9,995 of them. We want that. We want discourse. We want diversity. We want different points of view. We don't want drones. But these 5 things, if you don't believe these 5 things, hopefully you never get hired. We use this as part of our screening process. But you very quickly, it won't be the right fit for you, and you'll know that, and we'll know that. So it's really just guarding those values that define your culture.
I've probably done more interviews about core values, I think, than anyone.
I love it. I love it.
And really, it comes from fast growth companies believe in their people and trust in their people, and they need to create some guardrails so that we're hiring the right people, what we're discussing, and we're also leading and exiting and all of the other aspects in between. When you are hiring for core values, I've got my own kind of techniques and strategies. What are the ways that you and your team stay aligned around hiring people that are a fit for the core values?
Sure. So here's what we don't do. So if, one of our values is around accountability. Be accountable, trust that others are. If I say, Gene, do you consider yourself an accountable person? Everyone's going to say yes, in part because we probably believe we are, and because it just like the word no wouldn't come out of our mouths and answer that question. What we ask is something like, talk about a time in a work situation where you had to take accountability for something that didn't go well and how you handled that. And we don't look for the answer that a coach on TikTok told you to give to that question. We look for someone giving like a genuine answer about, hey, one time I screwed up the invoice and I had to go make it right, because we've all done that. We all make those mistakes. And so rather than ask yes or no, it's tell a story about, and then listen to see if it's a genuine answer or a coached answer. And then just constantly, when we promote people, give raises, when we have the hard discussions about performance, we weave in those core values into the discussion as well.
I'm kind of curious. I know that you have your core values on your website because I do research with all the people that come on the show.
Yeah.
And do you have candidates that come in and they know your values? You can tell before they interview?
We do. I love it. And some will be very blatant that they've read it and they've kind of prepped around that. But I just admire that preparedness. People that come in and know about me, know the core values, know the company history. I jokingly say we have a few folks here that it was almost like they were daring me not to hire them. They nailed the interview that much that it's like, as a reasonable human being, I can't not. This person is it's impossible not to hire this person because they came in so strong and did everything exactly right. So yes, we do have that. And I want them out there. I want people to do that homework, because when they talk to a client, I want them to do the research on how you act in the interview is how you act at work. So if you're researching us, you're going to research your client, your competitors, once you're here.
I've had a lot of people that have been on the podcast before say one of the benefits from being on the show is not necessarily new customers, but it's an employee will listen to the show and determine whether they're a fit for the company or not. And I'm okay with that as being a benefit, because if someone listened to our interview today and said, you know what, I really want to work with Bill because this is the kind of organization that represents me and who I am. And that's what we're talking about from a hiring based on core values.
Right.
Bill, what else factors into building a great culture?
Sure. So, we do spend a lot of time together. So we volunteer frequently together at events. We are primarily in office, and I identify that in the very first meeting in the job postings that's not for everyone, and that's great. There's a million remote workplaces, but we're not going to probably become best friends without having some lunches and some happy hours and figuring out stuff together in person and the long walks and the whiteboard. So we do focus on that. We really integrate work and life, I think, really well. Balance is another way to say it. But if someone, has childcare responsibilities, so we have what we call a school bell schedule where they get their kids on the bus, they get home in time to take their kids home. We have people working through elder care, so they've got that flexibility. People that just have to go let the plumber in. So we build that kind of ebb and flow into, so it's almost like an integrated, work and life aren't really separated. They kind of chain up together. Even we pay attention to the layout of our office. It's kind of set up like a house. We've got hallways where people have to crash into each other. We've got a kitchen area. We've got an outside walking path that we tend to use. There's almost always at least one dog here. People bring their pets in. And so nothing makes people happier than a big fluffy dog, walking around. So it just changes the tone of conversations. So really everything from the way we work to the way we volunteer to frequent events. We do monthly events as a team, which probably sounds excessive to a lot of listeners, but some months it's just a euchre tournament or we all go to a park and do yoga or whatever. So, but we do some kind of an event together every month. Every Friday we eat lunch together. So it's a kind of a stand up. We talk about what we worked on that week. But we bring in pizza and wings. We talk about our weekend. We talk about football. We do lunch and learns for those. So we've brought in speakers to talk about things like how to buy a home, personal finance. We brought in a juggler to teach us how to juggle one time on a Friday. So we bring in these anything from very fun to very serious lunch and learns. And you imagine, 23 data and math people trying to learn how to juggle together. It makes for some pretty good memories and fun times. So it's very collaborative. And I think to be here and succeed here, you have to want to be part of a company like that. And a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't. And our job is to find the ones that want to and really nurture them.
When you think about leadership, I try to put these things into principles when I work with my clients. And, some businesses are a little bit different, but what are your principles to creating a great culture?
Sure. I think one is just knowing in my mind, this is what I believe is important. So I think there's an organic aspect to it, but you also have to say, what are my personal values? Because if I create a culture that doesn't align with my values, the team's going to know it. They're going to pick up on it. It's going to feel forced to me and them, and it's not good. So to some extent, there is a bias that's built in by the leader and the leadership team. And there's a couple other folks here that are really key to our leadership team. So one is defining what those values are. I think it's constant reinforcement of those as a leader. So before the broadcast here, I talked about having tough conversations, and that's hard. It's not, it's not pleasant. It's probably the thing I do. I believe it's my biggest weakness, because I'm not good at those conversations. But understanding when someone who is, they're a developer and they're performing, they're on time and on budget with their project, or they're a salesperson, they're on quota, but going to them and saying, you're not being accountable. You're not, taking action quick enough. It's a hard conversation to have, but you have to, as a leader, the same mentor tells me that, leaders don't run and duck when the bullets start flying. You kind of got to run towards the problem. You got to be the one running towards the challenges, and that's hard, but you've got to keep reinforcing that.
Now, Bill was talking about tough conversations. Now, I know this is an area where a lot of people struggle. A lot of people are avoiding them. And I want to give you the tools we have. Me and my wife are writing a book about this and really excited about publishing it in the beginning of 2024. Hold me accountable. But in the meantime, if you want to get a little bit of a primer, a short version of this framework that allows you to go ahead and start doing the work behind this, it is literally the shortest we can make this. It's probably like 7 or 8 pages. There might be some fluff in there with a title page and whatnot. It's pretty short, but it will give you a framework for tough conversations. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com/tough conversations. It's absolutely free. There's no actual email login required. You just put in that URL, genehammett.com/tough conversations, and you'll find it. If you can't find it, send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. And if you're curious about the book that we have coming out, stay tuned for that. Keep listening, or send me an email. I'll pick a few of the people that send me the email, and I will give you a free copy of the book on my dime. Not asking you to buy it, because I want people to love this and use it and tell others about it. So all that being said, Tough Conversations, go to genehammett.com/tough conversations to download the framework today. Now back to Bill. I love the quotes you're bringing to us about your mentor. And, I don't know if this is a formal mentorship or coaching. It doesn't have to be, but why do you go outside of your own executive team and your own, people that you probably trust implicitly to get insight for what you're dealing with?
Sure. One, by definition, we have blinders on. We're thinking about Futurety all the time, myself and our executive team. So yes, we talk to peers. Yes, we look at other organizations, but we're very ingrained with what we do here. I've got 3 really great mentors that I work with, and they have all 3 done what I'm doing now and succeeded, and are anywhere from 5 to 40, 30 years ahead of me or so. So they've solved all the problems. And so I can spend 6 weeks, dealing with the problem, banging my head against the wall, writing on whiteboards, not sleeping, make the wrong decision. Or I can call up my mentor and say, hey, Pam, I'm dealing with, and before I finish a sentence, she's like, here's the answer. Because she's done it. She's had that problem 5 times. The first 4 times, maybe she didn't do it right. The 5th time, she figured out the problem. So it's like having the cheat code or the cheat sheet. So she's like, if you make this decision, this is how it ends. Or choose your own adventure. If you make this decision, this was what happened. Here's the right decision. Go make that decision. And now a 6-week painful process becomes a 6-minute conversation with her. So I rely on that network a lot.
It reminds me of what my clients say about me. I wouldn't describe myself as a mentor, because sometimes I get pulled into things I haven't done before, in full transparency, because there's just so many aspects of leadership and company growth and scalability. And some of my clients now are $200 million. I've never run a $200 million company, but an outside perspective sometimes is what you really need. When you're so ingrained into the issues and the problems, you need that outside perspective. Just like your managers are so inside the problem, it's so much easier for you to see what's going on.
Right.
Because you've got fresh eyes, if you will.
Absolutely.
You talked about speed. Speed's certainly an aspect of that relationship for my clients, as well as your relationship with your mentors. I want to wrap up today with a question about a mistake maybe you've made, or an inflection point across your leadership that required you to rethink how you look at leadership. Can you remember a time like that and share a little bit of a story around how you've evolved as a leader?
Sure. I think I'll use an example related to those tough conversations. So I know in my first company, I was 31 when I started, so not there's certainly much younger founders, but I was still pretty green. I hadn't had really a lot of management or leadership team in my job. So I went being from like a mid-level manager to being a president very quickly. And I really wanted the team to like me. And I really wanted this was the mid 2000s. So, money was kind of flowing, VC funds. The Midwest was kind of a good place to be. There was lots of stuff. So I kind of wanted that cool tech startup vibe going, and really wanted to be, a CEO of the people or president of the people. And, I made the mistake of, when things would go bad, or, there was a tough conversation to be had, whether it was with a team member or with a client, I wouldn't confront it. I kind of I let it go too long. And then it hit me one time. We actually had to terminate someone, and, talk to a consultant. They said, okay, do your 3 warnings and your verbal warnings. But that person was really surprised when we started that warning and disciplinary process. And one of my mentors again said, if they're surprised, then that's your fault as a leader. If someone suddenly hears they're probably going to get fired and they're on that program and they don't know anything about it until then, you have not done a good job communicating. And I realized that they make a mistake, and I would give them a pass. I would, tell them that, kind of justify it. Well, someone even recently told me, you can't want that person to be part of your company more than they want to be part of the company. And I made that mistake. I didn't have those open conversations. Now I feel like I'm getting better about that. And it's, generally speaking, with the people that want to grow, they want that feedback. They crave that feedback. You see that impact. It's more fair to them. It's more fair to you. It's more fair to the clients and the other team members. So for me, it's going from wanting to be liked all the time and wanting to a little, softer, to knowing there's a time when direct feedback is the best thing you can do for someone.
Well, you've said it well. It's certainly a big part of the book that we're creating on Tough Conversations.
Great.
And I think the chapter is the epidemic of avoiding tough conversations, because there's too many people. And it's not just CEOs, it's managers going, I don't want to cross the line into micromanagement. And I get it, but holding someone accountable to what they said they were going to do, and having a tough conversation when they're not at the quality standard, or they're, I say this with a smile, maybe someone on your team didn't take a bath on a regular basis, and you have to actually say, hey, this doesn't work for our close work environment.
Right, exactly.
All of those things require. So I appreciate you sharing this with us, Bill, and being here today with us to talk about building a great culture. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Wow, another great interview. I love what we wrapped up there with, just talking about the team and talking about, his evolution as a leader. Because here's the key: if you're not evolving as a leader, if you're not growing, if you're not really shoring up some of the weaknesses and really replacing those with good habits and better skills, then you're not going to be growing at the pace at which you need the company to grow. And if you have big growth goals, you probably also have things that you want to improve, whether it be culture-wise or leadership-wise across the company. And if you're curious about how we can help, we'd love to help you. You can sign up for a credibility briefing. Just go to genehammett.com/ just schedule a call, if you will, and just say it directly. Just go to genehammett.com/schedule a call. And you will be able to engage with this, and I'll be able to serve you with some of the tools we use and treat you like a client to create a plan for your build. It's absolutely free. You feel like it's a fit for you and a value to you, and you're curious, just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.